Hello, everyone. This is the SaaS AdLab podcast. This is episode number 2. And today we have for our guest, we have Jason Kanigan. He is the founder of Cold Start Technologies, and he's also the co-founder of a third-party sales company, the Closing Engine. And Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit more about those?
So the Closing Engine is the project that I worked on for the last year and a half before going full-time into Cold Star. And the Closing Engine is a third party, as you said. Closing is a service, sales is a service business for high ticket offers. So things at it used to be $4,000 and up, now it's $6,000 and up. So although I don't spend my time there, I'm still talking to everybody. We're all buddies and still getting along. So for anybody who's got a product or service in that price range, who wants good, competent, consultative / challenger selling style help, we don't do they don't do the pushy, aggressive features and benefits, overcoming objections, old school wrestling in the mud style. We don't believe in that. Go check them out at theclosingengine.com. Now, Cold Star, which I wanted a science-y space name, and I did a bunch of research for an afternoon, pulling out a whole bunch of terms, and I really like Cold Star. And it's a real thing. It's a star that is burning, but not very bright or very hot.
Okay.
And it's sort of like compared to our sun, it's a little white dwarf burning away there.
Uh-huh.
And so the idea there that I had is getting the most out of what you've got. So whatever, imagine a Dyson sphere around that sun, pulling out all the energy that it could out of this cold star, right, to make use of it. So that was the idea there. And what we do is a lot of process documentation and process engineering, which means chopping stuff up into little steps and then going, do we need this? Is this necessary, or can we eliminate it, or can we do it in a better way? And so we spend a lot of our time doing that. And that is very important for tech companies, although a lot of them don't recognize it.
Mm-hmm. So is this something how did you really get into, Cold Start, and what was your driver as to what made you actually, become interested in this kind of work?
So my training, more than 20 years ago, was in factory management. It's called operations management, and that's the process engineering, continuous improvement, managing people and stuff like that. And I got to be a plant manager when I was 25, and when I was 26, I had 150 people reporting to me in 6 departments.
That's awesome. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, but I found out it sucked.
Yeah.
It just really was like running a little village of tattletales, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I want Star Trek. I want the team of people who know why they showed up today, right? Mm-hmm. They have the values, they have the principles, they have the skills, they want to be there. I don't want someone coming up to me and bitching that Joey took an extra 10 minutes on his break. I don't care. Is the job being done? So I wanted to work with really high level individuals on exciting projects and not just do grunt work. And so
you really focus with SaaS companies, right? And do you like to work with
that's one area. Yeah.
Okay. And go ahead. Yeah,
we do a lot with manufacturing as well.
Cool. Very cool.
And health, safe patient handling.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big area.
And
so I was a product manager for an Inc. top 1,000 company for medical equipment.
Okay.
And so I pull all that stuff. I got educated all by the industry there, the industry associations. Just by way of examples, so people know what I'm talking about. If you have a hospital, they shell out millions of dollars a year because they drop people on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not joking. This just happens. It's accidents. They have insurance for it. Say it's $2 million, right? Well, if you can go in there and sell them $500,000 or $1 million worth of safe patient handling stuff to make the moving easier, there's plastic boards, there's overhead kind of crane things, lifts that you can use and whatnot. And people have to be trained up on this stuff. Say you do that for $500,000 or $1 million, it's just cost benefit, right? Yeah. It's a no-brainer. But any industry where there's a need for compliance is a good one for us, right?
So they get it. The question is, who are usually the companies that you see that are seeking out this kind of service, and do they usually know exactly what it is that they need.
That's the issue with software as a service, yeah, and tech firms, because they're usually going crazy Mach 2 with their hair on fire, right? And blowing money on ads, and they don't care, that kind of thing, right? So I have to find the specific kind of business owner that I want to work with, who's got their head screwed on their shoulders. They're brutally self-honest. They don't want to. I write this copy on my LinkedIn profile. They don't install a new human shield CMO every 6 months to shield them from the truth, right? And then blame that guy and fire that guy and replace. These are brutally honest people who take responsibility for what's going on, and they know about it. In manufacturing, all the lean production, Six Sigma guys, they all know about it. In healthcare, in food and pharmaceutical production, those guys know it, because like if you screw up, hey, people die, right? So we don't need salmonella going out everywhere, and we don't need pills that don't work or do something different than what's expected.
They're supposed to do.
These are great fields. Now in the tech field, once in a while, on my own show, the Cold Star Project, I've interviewed a couple of, like a CTO and head of a software as a service. Both those guys are scaling big time. One had passed $500,000. The other one was heading off to $1 million in revenue. Those guys understood the value of processes, and they were keyed into it. They were like, yep, you need this.
Were those two, did they happen to be funded companies?
Nope. They're self-promoted, self-created people. So,
yeah, 'cause I find that sometimes the companies that tend to find, all the issues that are whatever they may be facing, sometimes they're brought on to them by someone else, whether it's an investor or someone else that tells them like, this is something that you need to get fixed.
Right.
Then they're telling them. So it's kind of surprising that it's actual companies that are, pretty much on their own with their own money, their own dollars, and they're realizing that they need the help in order to get taken care of.
Well, and I have to be clear here. This company's been around. I've been operating it since December 2016, but it has only gone full-time since June of this year. So I would be lying if I said I have gone everywhere, done everything, tried every niche, right? So I do have an ongoing list of companies that are receiving venture capital funding and their amounts and where they are. And I could I wouldn't want to do it myself. I could probably hire someone to go through and pick the niches that we want to work in, right? And go approach those people with
and what is one of the niches that most interests you?
I want to get into space, right? And the way into that is probably aerospace. And so that's an area that I'd like to get into. But tech is always good. I mean, tech is always receiving lots of funding. Then they spend it like water. I kind of worry about these guys sometimes, they get the money and they're like, okay, woo, we have 13 customers. I'm like, you're proud of that? And yet they're funded for $3 million or something like that, or $200 million. You see these amounts, and it is great that much money can be raised in America.
It's crazy how much these companies.
Wasn't true 20 years ago.
Yeah, and it's not just one time. They get multiple rounds of funding and things like that. So while you're doing, audits on these businesses and things like that, what would you say is the number one issue that you're noticing most companies go through? And do you see issues at different levels? So let's say whether you're taking a look at a company that only has 10 employees compared to a company that's 50, and what kind of things do you notice that are coming as they scale?
Right. Like the minimum size company I want to work with is 12 people, because at that point, I've noticed this over time, both as an employee pre-2012 and since then running my own businesses. That's the point at which you go, okay, we'll just hire another person. Yeah. Right. And before that, it's, I got to make this careful decision and everything, it's slow and whatnot. And they're nervous about it. But now they're just, I'll just hire somebody. And so that's good. But as a guest of mine said on a recent show, the stuff that you need to be doing at that 12-person company is different from 50-person company, right? It's a different stage of development. By the time you get to the 50, you're going to start seeing silo groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
The marketing, let's say I was a credit manager in my late 20s. I spent 4 years collecting $2 million a month in receivables every month. The credit department was one power group, and the general manager office was another power group, and the branch staff and branch managers were another group, and then the end customers were a fourth group. And they all have their own agendas. So if credit, being the, hey, we got to protect the assets of the company, police bad guys here, shuts down a customer account, well, the customer's pissed off, the branch is pissed off, right? And they go to the general manager, who goes to me or my boss and starts screaming at me, what are you doing? Because they don't really understand what credit is. They think it's a sale when they hand you the thing. Though the customer walked out the door, they had the thing, you got nothing, right? You got a promise to pay. So there's a whole educational process. And that took me a year and a half to get through to those folks. And then they started making decisions the way I would. And then in the fourth year, I was in British Columbia. A lot of my branches were in Alberta, and 4 of my branch managers out there invited me to come and hang out with them. This was in 2004, 2005. So, you know, and you don't invite someone to come and spend a few days with you drinking in a trailer in the woods and hanging out on ATVs and playing campfire golf if you hate their guts, right?
Yes.
So I consider that a big win. So that's the kind of thing that's going on in bigger companies. At the 12-person level, hopefully you've got a founder or CEO that's beginning to back off a little bit about micromanaging everything. They're hopefully starting to be a little bit comfortable. There's a lot of marketing issues in those companies. They may have a sales team of 1, 2, 3 people, but they typically don't have a consistent sales process. They don't necessarily know their numbers. They're still just throwing stuff at the wall, and something's sticking. They're making money. And cash flow covers up a lot of goofs, right? If you're making some cash, there's a lot of screw ups under the surface, bad marketing, bad processes, which lead to quality problems.
So is that the reason why those things are happening? I mean, obviously not the main reason, but for, let's say, okay, well, I have this company and it's profitable, so there's no reason to really look into everything.
Why do I need to mess with it? Right. And that's why you need that, or I need that, that brutally self-honest business owner who's willing to look reality in the eye and go, oh, this is horrible, you know, and I don't like it. And I'm going to have to make an investment here and make some changes. But that's the way, this is the secret. This is the way, Lewis, that you get to that next revenue plateau. You can't go from, there's a wonderful graphic in a book about scaling where it's like this, and then the next plateau, and the next plateau, and companies try to jump, and there's an increasingly smaller amount of companies obviously at each plateau, right? But if they don't change how they're doing what they're doing and what they're doing, then they die. The guy calls it the valley of death in between each plateau. And so you got to, the stuff you did to get you there is not the things that you're going to be doing to get you there. It's not going to happen. That sounds simple, but what do you hear out there? Oh, we just got to get more customers, right? Oh, they are on the search for the next bag of money a lot of the time. That'll solve the problems. No, money enhances what's going on. It does not fix what's going on. So that's a lot of what we see. So sometimes it's executive time being used the wrong way. There's a case, I use this on my my website, of the Stephen Monaco, the $50 million man, running DataStorm, this huge licensing software company in the 90s, and he's growing. They're growing so fast. They're bringing on people every day, and they're expanding to the space they've gotten moving, and expanding to fill out that space. They're going, what are we going to do, right? And he's meeting people and spending half the day walking them around by hand, and it's like, dude, why don't you have a manual, right? An SOP or a welcome manual, and get them going, or assign somebody else. Like, you should not be doing this stuff. Finally, you realize that, right? But you think there's an executive of a pretty big company, right? I'd like to be running a 300-person company, right? Who's spending his time shepherding new employees around. Like, that's great for a high meet and greet kind of thing, but it shouldn't be all day, right?
Right.
So A couple other situations where people would get use out of us is if they're buying a business, they just bought a business. Okay, what did you get? You were sold a bill of goods. What did you really get here, right? What is the cash flow actually looking like? The employees that you got, there's often a bad apple in there.
What are the biggest issues that you find when someone buys a business? Someone got rid of it for a certain reason.
Yeah, that reason could be the owner died and the relatives got a hold of it and they don't want it and they dispose of it at a good price, right? Mm-hmm. That's if you're sharp, that's what you're on the watch for, right? And you know your niche. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be they got rid of it because something's wrong. It's like I go out on Craigslist and I buy camera gear, right? Somebody's selling a 5-year-old Canon camera. There's nothing wrong with it. He's just upgraded to the one that's 2 years old, right? Or the new one. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but attitudinal stuff or broken processes and feedback loops that weren't in place. Feedback loops are hard. And I've talked to guests on my own show, the Cold Star Project, where they will have agreed with me, consultants and CEOs alike, that feedback loops are the toughest things in the world. You think you've got good people, you think you've thought about this stuff and what the consequences are and outcomes in that, and then something happens and it breaks and you don't find out about it for 2 weeks. And you're burning money and productivity the whole time. That goes on all the time. So finding out, okay, does this thing work the way it's supposed to, right? Does the machine, we put energy, resources, people, bit of money in, and hopefully get a chunk of money out, right? We want a 1.5, 2x, 3x, 10x, whatever it is, right? Our investment into revenue, but does it really work that way? So just documenting the processes. And then if people are selling a business, that's another great situation. If you got a business and you're selling it, one of the fastest and best ways to raise your valuation is to get standard operating procedures written down and having a Cold Star agent go in, be an independent third party, right? We didn't do this ourselves. We brought Cold Star in to write down these processes and document and do the quality assurance thing, the ISO thing. Are you doing what you say you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. That will raise the valuation of your company, because then it becomes a bit franchise-like, right? And so that makes it a marketable, sellable asset.
Definitely. So do you work with any franchise models at all?
Well, I was a product manager at an top 1,000 franchise. So as a senior manager there, I got to see how all this stuff worked, right? And I got to see mostly good things. I got to get educated on the bad things that can happen as you grow. So I caution people a lot, and they don't like it. This is the brutal reality thing again, right? You cannot go and try and take a business that isn't working and go, well, I'll just write it up and franchise it, or I'll pay some doofus $7,000 to give me a templated poop through a goose version of a franchise document with some branding, licensing, and whatnot. I mean, if you haven't got this thing figured out to where it's profitable, you have no business going out there and trying to sell it to other people. That's not right. Okay. So, and that's the part that turns people off, because they're looking at it as a money grab way of doing things, right? So if you've got a good business model and it is working and you understand what you're going to do about franchising. We could dig into this for an hour, by the way. Maybe we should on a future episode. But how you want to work with franchising, the big decision is, am I going to protect the geographical regions or not? Okay. So you can do the bath fitter or Subway model where they're just like all over the place, right? Mushrooms competing with each other. And the problem with that, one of the many problems with Subway, those of you who are interested in franchising should look up the history of Subway franchising and the trouble they've gotten into over the many years they've been around. They're still around. Is the $3.99 or $4 sandwich, and that because that's price cutting. It's a cheap sandwich that the the franchisees don't want to offer. They're like, I can't make money on this sandwich. And I feel if I don't offer it, the customer's going to go over there,
To the one
like
on
to
the
that other
corner.
franchise. Yeah. And I'm going to lose the dollar. So they grin and bear it. And that put a lot of franchisees out of business. So does that sound good? Right? You know, so there's all these like trickle effects, right? Or you get a franchise business like the one that I worked with, where we did protect our franchisees, and we were not interested in making money on the franchise fee. We lost a little bit of money on the franchise fee. It was like $40,000 or something like that. And we'd lose a bit of money on it because we didn't want, the president took me aside early on while I was there and said, we don't want grandma in Kansas with 40 grand in the bank. That's not good enough, right? They got to have expertise and some entrepreneurial ability, more funds, because this is going to cost more than that, and to understand what this is going to take. And our best franchisees in that business would buy multiple neighboring geographic areas. Like our best bunch that I can think of bought 4. They were in northern Texas and a couple of like Oklahoma and that, some touching states. And those folks, they were well capitalized. It was a great entrepreneurial family. They owned some hospitals, and this was like elderly mobility equipment, safety equipment, and that. So big overlap in need, and they understood it. So yeah, you really got to think about that. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to protect your franchisees in their geographic areas? What are you in this for? Right? What's your money-making model? If your money-making model is to sell franchises and make money off the fees, I don't think that's a good idea, is the answer to your question. The business that I was in centrally ran all the marketing, all the digital marketing for the franchisees, and they charged a big % of gross sales from the franchisees every month to be able to do that. And I don't know what they're doing today. They got bought out after I was done there, and by another company, and good for them, you know. But who knows what happened? Like I'd have to look into that. But as you grow in a franchise business, and I think we're getting at kind of out on a side here, but again, we could come back and talk about this another time. The group of franchisees is going to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, right? And you're going to get into this situation where there's going to be too many for you to just sit down and have a franchisee conference and talk to them. Okay, they're going to have to elect, just like the NHL Players Association elects an executive group to go talk to the owners, right? And they have their negotiations. So you're going to have this franchisee council that meets with you, the owner, and hammers out deals. And like there's politics in here now, right? And what happens if they bring a deal back to the franchisees that they don't like, even though these guys are also franchisees? So very dangerous situation. You can get sued by your franchisees is the big risk here. You can get big time sued, and companies like Subway have been sued for grifting. If you look into their history, they've done a lot of things to rip off their franchisees. And also Moe's Southwestern Grill had some trouble as well. Those are 2 examples I recommend people to look into before they get into buying or selling a franchise. So I know a thing or two about that.
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to, I guess, you know, the SaaS industries and things like that, what are the things that interest you the most in there?
So marketing, sales and marketing funnels and processes. A lot of people don't really have them consistently down. There's a guy named Nathan Latka, you probably know of, who runs getlatka.com. Great repository of data about software companies that contribute that data. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And once in a while, he'll run a webinar. And I was on one earlier this year where we discovered that most of these businesses, SaaS companies, running on a subscription model did not have an individual in charge of churn. And that is the craziest thing I can think of. Like if you're like, you can have an individual in charge of that churn as well as other things. But if you're like in the multi-million-dollar region, spend 50 grand and get a guy or a gal in charge of churn. Like the ROI on that
Yeah.
It's moronic not to, right?
Yeah.
And yet nobody thinks to do it. So hopefully he began to change the industry by talking about it on that webinar, because that was baffling to me. I'm like, wow, the effect of reducing churn
Yeah.
is so good for cash flow, right? Because you're keeping that customer retained. Market just oomph in the marketplace, right? Because you've got a bigger customer base that's sticking around longer, better testimonials, right? This is just off the top of my head, by the way. I haven't planned any of this stuff out, but this is just stuff. If you get people, when do people find out how great you are? After they've worked with you, not before.
Yeah.
Right. So if they've stuck around because they've paid an annual subscription fee and gotten a big discount versus month to month on that, they're there longer. They're probably using the thing because they've invested the equivalent of 9 months. Let's say they got a 3-month discount for paying the whole thing. You got the cash today, and there's the time value of money. $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow, right? Or next week. Then you got something, and they're going to get the chance to use this thing and come up with usage stories that are your testimonials, right? Also, greater chance for, looking at things on the negative side, greater chance for them to use the thing, find out all the bugs, and troubleshoot it for you, right? Send you the notifications. Hey, this is busted and that's busted. So you get, as opposed to a whole bunch of buyers who stream in, commit for 1 or 2 months, don't really use the thing, and disappear because of churn, right?
So
And don't give you that feedback.
would you say one of the easier ways to reduce churn is by having, I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that do already have a yearly or whatever 12-month
Yep.
option, and they're usually pushing for that because, like you said, money is better like now. So what is, I guess, is it better to have an option that offers that 12-month, whether it's discounted or not? Would you say that's
absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
and
And a
you're
lot of business people, guys like me, want that decision made and gone. Like, I don't want to think about it again. Okay, I did my research, or I had my people go out and say, okay, here are the 3 best things, and we sat down and we hashed it out in 2 hours and whatnot. I'm done. Right? I want to make the investment and be done with it, right? And then you got guys like Andy at Convertry, who does a wonderful job, right? He's got 2 email lists, and he'll tell you about this. And I'm a subscriber of Convertry, and I get these emails, and they're called Convertry Happiness, and it's awesome, right? Because they're success stories. They're telling you about what they're doing to fix bugs and improve the product and stuff like that. And that's going to reduce churn too, because a lot of the other things, what do you get? Silence.
yeah.
Thanks for the money. Nothing.
And then they charge you again.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, I guess, brand loyalty, there's a ton of options, right? You have, like, for any service really, I can't think of anything off the top of my head specifically, but you have a ton of different options for each specific, whether you're looking for a chat or a messenger bot or whatever it is, you have options. So do you find that people that, I mean, obviously when you do the 12-month contract, you're kind of stuck for a while, but would you say that those specific individuals, would someone that joins on a month to month, are they more loyal than someone that joins on a full contract? And I guess this could definitely vary by company, right? So there might not be a clear answer to that. So I guess who stays longer is the question.
I would imagine those who commit for the full year are going to get the ear of the developers a lot more easily.
Okay.
Right? Because they've shown skin in the game. And I would, like, I get on calls with these guys and say, look, we're going to do this. What are you going to do for us? Right? I'm a sales guy. I have to negotiate. And I'm not out to, like, screw people for the best deal. It's a very, you know, my ex-co-founder will attest to that. I'm much more nice about it. So, but I do want to know that they're responding, right, to that skin in the game, and that I'm going to be able to go to them and say, look, this thing is broken. We need to get a fix going. And I'll give you a good example from the closing engine. Third-party phone systems, right? Call apps, okay? We went through like 4 of them, okay? And two of them were run by pretty good, nice groups of people, but they all kept breaking,
Yeah.
which is the problem. And the funny thing is, after the fourth one, we went back to the first because they had been so nice.
Service.
Yep. Because they responded to us, and they had also fixed a lot of the mistakes in the 9 months that we'd been away. Right? They'd had a chance, a breather, from our perspective, to fix things. So that was really good. So it is possible, and the way that you treat people does rub off.
Definitely. I think that's one of the biggest things too that I notice with really any service that I go out there and use is if I'm being treated properly. And I see that the effort is there and they seem like nice people and they want to actually help you and not just cash in whatever credit card they decide to swipe, right? It definitely helps when people are nice. So I think that's probably the easiest way to reduce your churn is by just being a nice person.
Yeah. Show that you care. Show that you give a damn. They are buying your SaaS for a reason. Like it's either an integral part of what they do, right. In which case it's really important. It's like a structural beam in your house.
Yeah.
And you guys screw that up, the house is going to fall down, right? That's not good. Or it's a kind of an addendum for a cute, fun side project that they're doing. And they've got hopes and dreams tied up in that.
Yeah.
It's not just, we'll nobody buys something like that for no reason.
Exactly.
So, and those that do, like the AppSumo guys, nothing against AppSumo, but there are a lot of people who buy because the price was X. Yeah. And the thing looked good, right? And they're never going to use it. And those are often lifetime deals, right? Too. So they're not exactly what we're talking about here in terms of a repeat subscription model, but I just wanted to drag them in there for a second, kicking and screaming.
So now talking, you did mention, and this is completely just off the top of my head, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. Essentially, one of the main things that drew me into being interested in SaaS, to be completely honest, was the designs that most SaaS companies have. Very visually appealing websites or whatever it is that it is, right? They look good. And I think that's initially at the beginning was the main thing that interests me because I'm very drawn to just things that look good. And so I started getting more interested in the industry and things like that. And then I noticed that usually I personally tend to pick something that has a better design. And I want to see if that's something that is anywhere, within ColdStar. Is that something that you also take a look at? And do you see that at any level be the reason for any issues? Like, for example, let's say that you're starting to see, higher subscription rates and things like that. Would you say that could happen after a redesign of the website?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I have 3 years of advanced statistics in my background. I actually had to take the same course twice. I took it in the operations management program, and then a year later for my business degree, they made me take it again with the same instructor who was a doctor of math.
You didn't go?
Yeah, no. And he said, on the first day of the second class, what are you going to get to everyone? And I said, well, Stephen, I got 90% last time with you. I'm going to get 90% again. And the whole class laughed, and I got 90% again. So talk about fulfilling, self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So there you're talking about correlation versus causation, and that is certainly something we could help people figure out. We have a thing called the Red Team Experience. That's a great introductory product. That allows you as a business owner to get, the idea is the red team are the bad guys, right? The blue team are the good guys. So we put on our red team hats. I should get some hats made, I guess. That'd be fun. And go in there and kind of attack the business from different angles and find out where are you strong and where are you weak. And I'm not just talking about a SWOT analysis here. I'm talking about deeper level stuff. So you would get on a call with a channel marketing expert or a branding expert or an operations expert and whatnot, and then get feedback on all these different areas on how you're doing and what you can improve. So yeah, design is important. My whole design, I went to my designer and said, I want you to mix IBM Watson with the Terminator. and he came up with it right away on the first try. I'm like, good, because the whole idea of Cold Star is getting compliance. I want compliance out of my clients. I don't want dilly-dallying and screw-ups and false starts on projects and struggling to find information. I want my agents to go in and get what they need now, because that's the fastest route to us fixing your problem, right? Identifying and fixing it. And the self-aware business owners get that, the brutally honest ones. Right? It's not about mowing people over, but we do want to get at what we need to get at.
Right. And what it is, now that you mentioned time, and how fast you're going to get through something, is there a time period that you spend with each company that you work with?
It's different every time. Obviously on the higher end projects, the red team is like a 2-3 week experience. So, because that is the one where we'll still get compliance out of people, but we might need to wait a day or two to book a call with the right person, with the right team member on our side. So who's free when, right? To get that information exchange going. But once that happens and we can organize it at all, then, less than a month, they've got their awesome product out there that says, okay, here are your strengths, here are your weaknesses, here's what you could be doing better, and this is what you're doing absolutely fantastically. Right? This is the knife edge of the marketplace for you guys. So it's a great assessment tool. If you're not sure what to do next, if you're about to buy or sell your business, and if a lot of the time, like, just you get a CEO who knows that something's wrong, but can't put his or her finger on it, and they just need the outside eyes. Because I put this on the website too, on the homepage. I have a 2-minute kind of creepypasta story about the Cold Star agent going into an organization and uncovering, or about to uncover, an employee who's stealing or something. I kind of left that up to, and I had someone narrate it. And it's fun, and I want to do more of those, right? And so I want that spooky FBI, CIA kind of vibe going on. And if that turns some people away because they're a fluffy culture, that's fine.
Yeah,
right? Well, probably not a fit.
Yeah, that's what I think is, and I talked about this with the guy Omer from Vervo on the first episode, and just there's some people that aren't going to be a fit, and that shouldn't bother you, and you should know who's not going to be a good fit, and it's going to be better for you as you scale. Whether you're a SaaS company or any type of business, you don't want to be dealing with people that aren't going to be exactly what you're looking for. So I think that's a very smart thing to know from the very beginning. And then I did actually take a listen to that on the website. I thought it was funny. So I liked it a lot.
Good deal.
Let's see here.
Have we got anything else? I do kind of want to talk about that creating capacity before you need it sort of thing. That is a major thing, because we talked earlier about what do I see the smaller companies especially, right? Because a lot of people on Facebook are in that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 person range, right? 1, 2, 3 especially, right? Person range. And they're not at 12 yet. And they're like, Darren, how do I, like, they think that either VC funding is going to come along magically, and they don't know how to do it. And they're, every time they start thinking about it, their head starts spinning and they never get anywhere on it. Or they're just looking for that next bag of money, or gee, something will happen and we'll get traction, right? What can they do? So you have to create the capacity before the financial windfall for growth, and to get to that next plateau that I was talking about. And it is scary. It is scary, but it's what my ex-co-founder and I talk about driving the car, continuing to drive the car, even when all hell is breaking loose around you and you don't like it. There's a Tony Robbins story from one of his early books. I mean, I remember living in my parents' house, going to college and reading this. So maybe I was 19. That's how long ago this was, right? And Tony's talking about going out on a racetrack, and he's got a helmet on, and he's in one of these race cars with a professional driver who's teaching him in the passenger seat, right? And he's driving, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to crash into the wall, right? I'm going to crash it." And the teacher physically grabs his helmet and turns his head back towards the roadway, the track, right? Because he says, Tony, if you keep looking at the wall, you're going to crash into the wall. So that's a key thing here. I think that people get, we're all living in our own heads, right? Our thoughts make up our realities, our emotional responses to things, the picture we have in our heads. And so if we keep thinking, I'm going to crash, I'm going to crash, I'm going to crash, well, guess what happens, right? Whereas if you think, okay, I'm going to grow the business, I'm not quite sure how yet. Maybe I should talk to Jason because he's got a few ideas that don't have to cost you a lot of money. And I'm very interested in lowering your cost of customer acquisition too. That's a major thing that I can help you do. And it's not about fiddling with the funnels you've got right now. There's a whole new green pasture area of people you haven't thought of that you could go get. So creating that capacity first for people to move into. So you might have to get another developer, at least part-time on. You might have to hire another salesperson somehow, right? And creating that capacity.
Would you say that outsourcing is an easier way to do this, or usually?
It can work. What I want people to take away from this is to be very careful about the culture you're creating, and use that as a fit document. Let's write it down, or shoot a video talking about the principles, because I've got mine, and it's a little scary to some people, and like we've talked about, that's good, right? And we used to do this at the Closing Engine. We had a culture document. Before anyone could talk to Jeremy, my co-founder, they had to go through 3 or 4 steps, and one of those steps was reading a culture document, and then next they would fill out a questionnaire. And wouldn't you know it, all the hardcore closers would just fade.
Yeah.
They'd just disappear. They'd be like super enthusiastic. Oh, I heard about you guys. I want to work with you. And then they'd see that and they'd just vanish. And we'd get left with the consultative types who could close at 30, 40, 50%.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic, and with the attitude that we wanted. So and that we wanted to build an organization, like a family type organization, right? So, whereas I'm much more in this business interested in the sort of the FBI agent, professional kind of thing, right? I don't care what you do in your downtime, but keep it professional in work hours. So being clear about that, I think, is something people could use. And when they go to find people in the outsourcing, make them go look at that. And then you'll see, as we did, some will just disappear.
Yeah, that's funny.
And you won't have to have any uncomfortable conversations.
So they pretty much get rid of themselves.
Yep.
Essentially.
Yep. They qualify themselves out.
Yeah,
right.
That's genius. When looking at bigger companies that have already achieved, the processes and things like that are needed to be successful, what would you say are some of the things that people could mimic from someone that's already done it?
Getting a consistent sales process and making sure all your people are following the same thing so that you have consistency. Like, I've been in organizations, going back to 1999 here, where there was a trailer full of salespeople in a 4-building company. All the salespeople had different processes. There was no training, no manual. There was just product and price list and a phone, and there you go, right? And it's inside sales, and people will call into you. No consistency. That's a major thing. I spent most of 2016 working with a change management consultant from Holland who worked. He got hired by an American company at the end of it, which is why we stopped working together. So he immigrated here, which he wanted to do. But he was working with tech companies with a solution that was integral to their clients, like a logistics company, let's say, right? And these companies that he was working with were 1,000 people or larger. So they were not small companies. And they had siloization. They would get into situations where key members of their teams, especially implementation teams, would get caught up in one project, and then there'd be a failure on another, and they'd have to pull that person off project A and put them on project B, and it would end up like pissing off both parties, right?
Yeah.
So like, why are you taking them off our project, right? And then oh, you're late on ours. So nobody could win. So there's a capacity planning thing. I'm actually talking about this in another group on Facebook, and somebody said, oh, I've never heard of companies trying to get to 100% utilization. Well, some of them are, and some of them are very large, and they've learned the hard way that it's good to leave some reserves. So have some reserves. It's like, if I have one PC tower and it breaks, like, I'm screwed, right? I can't do video editing. I can't have calls. I can't do my regular internet typing stuff, right?
Yeah.
But if I have two, now I'm okay, right? If one breaks. So having that capacity, or cash flow, we've all been in businesses where $50 would make the difference that day, right? And it's stupid. And you're like, oh my gosh, I made $14,000 last week, right? And here I am worrying about this teeny tiny amount of money, and I'm screwed because of it. And it's causing all these other fees and embarrassment. And I got to make these embarrassing phone calls and stuff like that. So having a little planning for that as well, and some capacity, and not running to 100% efficiency. Taking time for yourself, and as the CEO, learning how to delegate and saying, okay, how can I get these folks to do something similar to what I would do maybe, or better, right? And giving them the Colonel Sanders 11 secret herbs and spices about what we do, and then saying, go have at it. And I have learned how to do that really well. The first bunch of years I worked in my own consultancy, I didn't know how to do that.
It's hard.
And
it's
I tried holding on, to everything myself. Like, only I can do this. My clients are hiring me. No, they're not. They are kind of, because they're hiring the reputation, but they're hiring for the result.
Right.
And if you can get them an amazing result with another person working with the parameters that you normally work with. I know copywriters, I've been a copywriter for over 20 years. I know other copywriters who I'd be very happy to delegate stuff to, right? Say, look, here's the thing, the project, here's my take on what we would do as a hook. What do you think, right? And be totally happy with them telling me I'm wrong, or taking what I did and sort of emblazoning it in a much nicer way. So,
well, and it's always good to have two different brains on something. I think not always think you've got the best product ever, because that's not always going to be the case. And delegating can sometimes lead to a lot of really great things, in my personal opinion. I'm sure you can also relate with that. So, Jason, we've got a couple of minutes left.
Yeah, we've talked a lot, so it's been good. Definitely
a good call. Why don't you tell us, where can people find you? And before you do that, one piece of advice that you would give to every and SaaS specific founders, CEOs,
get somebody in charge of churn. get somebody in charge of reducing churn.
So there you go. You heard it before. You heard it now. So Jason telling us to get someone to take care of churn.
And then maybe get out of your own head when it comes to reducing cost of customer acquisition. You don't have to use the one way. There is no one right way. And there are whole areas of opportunity that you've been probably blocking out. Talked about this before in blog posts. People have an ideological point of view, especially in SaaS, because they're out to change the world. Right? They're out to turn everyone into a Republican or whatever, or a Democrat, right? Essentially, right? With their SaaS, and infect them with their SaaS. And it's a lovely way of putting it, isn't it? But that's the way they're at. And so that shuts them off a lot of the time from, say, cooperating with somebody who looks like a competitor with that ideological point of view. And yet there's a huge overlap.
Yeah.
I'm giving away a secret here in terms of audience, which, if they would not kill each other due to those ideological reasons and went with a realpolitik sort of empire before World War I point of view, right? Then they could take advantage of each other's lists and cross-promote, and that would significantly lower your cost of customer acquisition, because those people probably already have awareness of the problem that is solved. They probably respect your authority, or will be able to, especially if the other company says these guys are good. right? So you're taking care of elements of marketing here that are really important. So those are the quick things that I would say.
We got a little bit of the sauce that
that's if we were using one of those planers, that would be scratching the surface.
Exactly.
Scraping off the wood to carve something. So what can you do to get hold of me? Okay. I have a podcast. It's called The Cold Star Project. So if you look for The Cold Star Project, it's on just about every platform under the sun, iTunes, Stitcher. We're based off Anchor right now. I'm also on YouTube. There's a Cold Star Tech channel. It doesn't have many subscribers yet because I have a Jason Kanigan channel with, more subscribers from all the years that I've been on. But go there and sign up, please.
Follow if you're listening.
Yeah, you're going to learn a lot about the unexpected challenges of scaling. That's what that podcast is about.
Which a lot of people don't know about. So
no, they just think I'm going to throw more money into ads.
Into my Facebook ads? Yeah.
That's going to lead you into trouble sooner or later. It's going to get you to that plateau, and then there's going to be the valley of death between you and the next plateau. You can connect with me on Facebook, Jason Kanigan. I am going to look at your profile, and if all you do is share silly memes, I'm probably not going to connect. But if you show a solid tech, manufacturing, professional background, right? Connected with a CPA and had a great conversation with him this morning, then yeah, I'm going to say for sure, no problem. And I don't care where you're from. I don't go, oh no, you're from Nigeria, I'm not going to connect or something like that, or you're from India. I'm okay with it. As long as you look like you give a damn and you're really into business, that's the main thing. If you're sharing pictures of lilies with motivational quotes on them, I'm probably not going to do anything. And then you can go to coldstartech.com for the ability to kind of, there's not a ton there. Again, this is not a web-based business, right? So that's there kind of just for me to show off some personality. If you want to learn more about the Red Team, it's coldstar.com/red-team, and you can get in there and see that hidden page. That's a very cool site, though. I had somebody custom program it for us. It loads like really fast, right?
I haven't looked at that yet, so I'll definitely take a look at that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Oh, so you ran into the video somewhere else?
Was that it?
Story? Yeah.
I just watched the video on the homepage, I believe.
Okay. So there's a button you could click in further there, get to an application page to call. But yeah, those are the ways. So appreciate this, Louis. I think we've had a chance to really turn the fire hose on the audience there.
Definitely.
some knowledge at them.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate you hopping on this podcast. Second one ever. So it will be live on pretty much every platform as well. Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, and so on. It'll be on YouTube as well. And again, thank you everyone for watching, for listening, tuning in, and keep an eye out for the next time. Connect with Jason. He's a great person, great personality, and again, appreciate having you on here. And thank you, and speak soon. Bye-bye.